week 10 of the fantasy baseball season, and here's a few hitters I looked at off the wire this week. First hit, Nick Gonzalez of the Pittsburgh Pirates. And Nick Gonzalez, he just got called up in the last month, and he's made the most of his opportunity on the year. 3 home runs, 16 RBIs, 11 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 315 average, and a 370 on base. And Gonzalez, second in shortstop eligibility in fantasy baseball. We know those are 2 of the weaker positions, I believe, this season in fantasy. So in the last couple weeks, 1 home run, 10 RBIs, a stolen base, 7 runs scored, a 372 average, and a 449 on base. So right now, no doubt about it, he's playing a little bit over his head, showing more power than usual, because last season he did have 115 at-bats with the 2 home runs, and so far this year, in 78 at-bats, he already has 3 homers. So the last few games for Gonzalez: May 29th at the Tigers doubleheader, 4 for 8, a homer, 2 RBIs, 2 runs scored. May 31st at the Jays, 2 for 5 with a run. June 1st at the Blue Jays, 1 for 4. And June 2nd at the Blue Jays, 1 for 5. So right now, playing good baseball. He's got to hit 4 games in a row. Gonzalez showing some pop, showing good batting average. And I'm not saying it's going to keep up the whole season here, but right now, well, he's widely available in 64% of fantasy leagues. He's at this week. The next hitter, Joey Ortiz of the Milwaukee Brewers. So Joey Ortiz, he's been solid over the last few weeks here. If he got out of the gate with a slow start, and he's a former top prospect as well. Ortiz, he was one of the main pieces in the Corbin Burnes trade, and he's getting an everyday opportunity after a slow start for this Brewer team to start the year. On the year, 5 home runs, 21 RBIs, 24 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 285 average, and a 382 on base. So a very good on-base percentage, solid batting average, and he's just a guy going out there and hitting the baseball well is Joey Ortiz. In the last couple weeks, no home runs, 9 runs scored, 6 RBIs, a stolen base, a 270 average, and a 360 on base. So Ortiz still out there in 56% of fantasy leagues. I know the power hasn't been all that great this year, but batting average and on base is what he's going to bring fantasy owners, it seems like. One of the former top prospects in the O system. May 30th versus the Cubs, 1 for 3, a run, an RBI. May 31st versus the White Sox, 2 for 4, run, an RBI. June 1st versus the White Sox, 1 for 5, an RBI. And June 2nd versus the White Sox, 2 for 3. So right now, Ortiz hitting the baseball well on a 5-game hitting streak. And then they go to a small park here, starting a 3-game set of Philadelphia, which is good as well for Joey Ortiz, and maybe some power could get going as well. So right now, well, he qualifies at 2nd and 3rd, and like I said, he's made the most of his opportunity for a season with this Brewer team. He's definitely there this week. The next head, Miguel Andujar of the Oakland Athletics. I'm very surprised I'm mentioning Miguel Andujar, former top prospect in the New York Yankees system, and now getting an opportunity with an Oakland team, obviously, that's been struggling over the last few seasons, and giving guys like Andujar an opportunity and try to build up their trade value and trade them at the deadline. So far, small sample size for Andujar in the season. Only 33 at-bats, 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a stolen base, a 420 batting average, and a 453 on base percentage. So Andujar, he's hitting the baseball hard. He's off to a good start, but Andujar, a lot of injuries have held him back over the last few seasons and bad performances. So right now, out there in 81% of fantasy leagues is Andujar, and he's made the most of his opportunity since he came back and into this lineup for this Oakland Athletic team. May 29th at Tampa, 2 for 3, 2 RBIs. May 30th at the Rays, 1 for 5, a run, and RBI. May 31st at the Braves, 2 for 4, run, a stolen base. June 1st at the Braves, a monster game, 4 for 5, a homer, 4 RBIs, 3 runs scored. And June 2nd in Atlanta, 0 for 4. So like I said, he's batting anywhere from 2nd to 4th in this Oakland Athletic lineup, getting an everyday opportunity. And right now, while he's playing good baseball, owners, they could go out there and get him, and if he struggles, you just drop him back on the wire. This is what happens a lot, where some players, they're good for a few weeks and then they don't do much, and that's how you play the waiver wire game. You play the hot hand, pick them up off the wire a few weeks, and then once they fizzle out, you find the next players that can help your team, and that's usually what happens. Most of these guys, they don't last the whole year at an elite level. The next hitter, Mark Vientos of the New York Mets. So Mark Vientos finally getting the everyday job for this New York Mets team after Brett Baty got the first shot at it coming out of spring training and the first 2.5 months of the season. But now Vientos, he's getting a chance, and so far in a small sample size, he's made the most of it, even though last season he did have 218 at-bats and wasn't that impressive. So on the year, 4 home runs, 9 RBIs, 9 runs scored, a 320 batting average, and a 366 on base. So like I said, Vientos, the last couple weeks, he's been more in the lineup. Beatty got sent down to the minor leagues for this Met team, and now he's the everyday third baseman. May 29th versus the Dodgers, 0 for 5. May 30th versus the Diamondbacks, 1 for 4. May 31st versus the D-backs, 3 for 5, 2 RBIs. June 1st versus the Diamondbacks, 2 for 4, a homer and RBI, 2 runs scored. And June 2nd versus the Diamondbacks, 0 for 3. So like I said, everyday opportunity. Had some big minor league numbers over the last few seasons where Vientos, the batting average is definitely fluky, but the power, I don't believe is fluky. Last season, we saw him hit 9 home runs in 218 at-bats. So he has potential to be a 20, 25 home run hitter with like a 230, 240 batting average with a high strikeout rate. So he's a typical power hitter, in my opinion, is Mark Vientos. Obviously, I don't believe the average will stay, but if you need power and RBIs, and he's in a pretty decent New York Met lineup on paper, obviously with some good hitters, even though they're not performing this season, like Lindor, Alonso having a down year. Francisco Alvarez should be back from the injured list sooner than later. JD Martinez. So there's some guys in that lineup where pitches, he'll see good pitching counts and good fastballs counts as Vientos. But right now, like I said, the average is fluky, but the power, I think, is legit. The next hitter, Davis Schneider of the Toronto Blue Jays. So Davis Schneider, the last couple weeks here, starting to get going for this Toronto team. And this might be the last chance for fantasy owners to go out there and get him. And he qualifies at second and outfield good versatility. So on the season for Schneider, 7 home runs, 30 RBIs, 26 runs scored, 3 stolen bases, a 240 average, and a 346 on base percentage in the last couple weeks here. Low batting average, but he's still showing some pop. 2 home runs, 13 RBIs, 8 runs scored, a stolen base, a 180 average, and a 295 on base. So like I said, he's going to have a low batting average as Schneider, but for someone who qualifies at second, he's going to show some power. He's getting that everyday opportunity, especially with plays like Justin Turner struggling late. And this offense really hasn't been as high impact as it's been in the past. May 29th at the White Sox, 0 for 4 run. May 31st versus the Pirates in 13 innings in that one, 1 for 6, a homer, 2 RBIs. June 1st versus the Pirates, 0 for 4. And June 2nd versus the Pirates, 2 for 4, a run and a rib. So right now he's been the leadoff hitter as well, is Davis Schneider for this Toronto Blue Jay team, where he's been a table setter. He's not going to steal bases. He's going to drive in some runs. He's going to show some pop. And like I said, for second base, a weak position in fantasy baseball, I think he's a decent ad, and he's available right now 56% of fantasy leagues. Next hitter is Jason Dominguez of the New York Yankees. So Dominguez, this is a little of a tricky one, in my opinion, because this Yankee team, obviously, their outfield is filled up and loaded with Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, and Alex Verdugo. And you got Giancarlo Stanton at DH, so unless they put him at first base or something, Anthony Rizzo, they get rid of him because he's been struggling so much. Jason Dominguez could have a spot there. So last season we saw a small sample size, and he came up and he was on fire. 4 home runs in 31 at-bats, 6 runs scored, 7 RBIs, a stolen base at 258 average, and a 303 on base. Obviously, in the offseason, he went under Tommy John late season into this year. Here is Dominguez, and he's tearing it up right now on rehab assignments, where he's played 12 games between single A and double A, and he's had 3 home runs in the last few contests. Is Dominguez, only 21 years old. And this Yankee team, I think they're going to have to find a way to get him in the lineup sooner than later. So right now, where he's a blue chipper prospect, and like I said last season, we saw him come up and tear it up in a small sample size. He's out there in 68% of fantasy leagues, is Dominguez, and definitely someone to keep an eye on and possibly add, in, especially deeper leagues. I would add him this week. The next hitter, Ceddanne Rafaela of the Boston Red Sox. This Rafaela getting an opportunity where he was a prospect in the system over the last couple of years. Last year, he had a cup of coffee in the majors, and this season, an everyday chance right now with this Boston Red Sox team. On the year, 7 home runs, 33 RBIs, 28 runs scored, 8 stolen bases, a 212 average, and a 239 on base. He's going to show some power. He's going to steal some bases, driving runs, but batting average is going to be a problem for Rafaela. And also, I think on-base percentage as well. He don't draw a lot of walks, and he's a free swinger, but the last couple weeks here, he's been getting it going. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 10 runs scored, a 261 average, and a 277 on base here for Rafaela. So he's been hot over the last couple weeks for this Boston Red Sox team. He's still widely available in a good amount of fantasy leagues right now in 66%. And he's shortstop and outfield eligibility as well which is good versatility. So the last few games, May 30th versus the Tigers, 0 for 1. May 31st versus the Tigers, 2 for 4, 2 homers, 5 RBIs. June 1st versus the Tigers, 1 for 4. And June 2nd versus the Tigers, 0 for 3. So right now, he's getting good pitch counts to hit on. Obviously, batting 8th and 9th usually in this Red Sox lineup, where opposing pitchers, they're not going to pitch around those 8th and 9th hitters, and they're going to give them something to hit at the bottom of the order. I think to help fantasy owners, if you need some pop and some stolen bases this week, and available in 66% of leagues. The next hit is Ty France of the Seattle Mariners. So Ty France, the veteran, he's had some fantasy value in the past, and this year it hasn't been that great of a year, but he's starting to get things going now. On the year, 7 home runs, 24 RBIs, 18 runs scored, a 256 average, and a 324 on base. And over the last 2 weeks here, 3 home runs, 9 RBIs, 3 runs scored, a 326 average, and a 442 on base. So last season, Ty France, he did get off to a monster start, hitting over 350 in the first couple weeks of the year. And then he really fizzled out. By Ty France, he's a professional hitter. We've seen him have good numbers versus lefties throughout his career. And like I said, now he's got that everyday job locked in once again for the Seattle Mariners team. And he's been playing better over the last few weeks. May 30th versus the Astros, 2 for 4. May 31st versus the Angels, 3 for 3, a homer, 3 RBIs. June 1st versus the Angels, 0 for 3. And June 2nd versus the Angels in that one, he went 0 for 4 in that game. But he's got a good matchup coming up at Oakland, when we know their pitching staff is one of the weaker staffs in all a Major League Baseball. And I think Ty France, he could take advantage of that. And he's batting in a good part of this order, 5th to 6th for the Seattle offense, even though I know this offense really hasn't been good. So right now, well, he's contributing, and he qualifies at first and third base, available in 84% of fantasy leagues. Next hitter is Jesse Winker of the Washington Nationals. It's been a mediocre year for him so far with this National team, but after the last few years where he didn't do much in stops with the Brewers and the Seattle Mariners, I think Winker's playing way better than he has. On the year, 6 home runs, 26 RBIs, 10 stolen bases, 26 runs scored, a 235 average, and a 349 on base. He's always been a good on-base guy, no matter what his average was. Even last year, 199 average, but a 320 on base, and some of the pop has come back as well for Winker. And over the last couple weeks, serviceable, 2 home runs, 6 RBIs. He's stealing more bases, 5 in this time, and 7 runs scored. So Winker's stealing bases. He's playing every day for this national team. And I think it's one of the reasons why Washington hasn't called up James Wood as well, where they're playing veterans and seeing if they could remain in the hunt in the wild card, which they are right now. And also if they could get something for these veterans at the trade deadline. So Winker available in 75% of fantasy leagues, and he's a guy in more 4 or 5 outfielder leagues. I would add him. May 30th at the Braves, 1 for 4, an RBI, a stolen base. May 31st at the Guardians, 0 for 3. June 1st at the Guardians, 1 for 4, a ribbon. June 2nd at the Guardians, 0 for 4. So this national team, like I said, they've been playing pretty decent baseball around 500, where they didn't even have expectations for that coming into the year. Now Winker and this national team opens up a 3-game set versus the New York Mets, where they're one of the worst starting rotations in all Major League Baseball. So right now, Winker playing well. He's been serviceable, and he's going to give you some power on base and stolen bases. And I would give him an ad this week. And the final hitter I looked at off the wire is Edmundo Sosa of the Philadelphia Phillies. So still with no timetable, obviously, for Trey Turner's return. He's going to be in this lineup every day pretty much, is Edmundo Sosa. And on the year, 4 home runs, 15 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, a 304 average, and a 373 on base. And over the last couple weeks, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, 6 runs scored, 316 average. So right now, Edmundo Sosa, he's showing some power, qualifies at short and third, which obviously shortstop a weak position, and he's going to help there. And in this Philly lineup, and in different spots in this lineup, we've seen him bat second, 6th at times, 8th. So he's all over the order. And in a good lineup with hitters like Bryce Harper, obviously, JT Realmuto, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Bohm, he's going to get good pitches to hit, and he's taking advantage of it. May 28th at the Giants, 2 for 4. May 29th at the Giants, 0 for 5. May 31st versus the Cardinals, 1 for 3, a homer, 2 RBIs. And June 1st versus the Cardinals, 1 for 4. So Sosa playing pretty good baseball, showing some surprising pop. And like I said, anyone who gets an everyday opportunity has been playing pretty decent baseball, especially in deeper leagues, is worth an ad. And right now, he's still available in 76% of fantasy leagues. So that's a few hitters I looked at off the wire for week 10 of the fantasy baseball season.